Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast channel. Today we're diving into a topic that, well, I think touches almost everyone at some point. Rebuilding self-respect after experiencing disrespect.
It's definitely a common struggle.
Yeah, we're going to explore how those moments of feeling, talked over, dismissed, maybe undermined, or even belittled can really shake our sense of self-worth.
Those experiences can cut deep.
They really can. So if you've ever found yourself questioning your value after something like that, this deep dive is specifically for you.
It is. And think about those maybe subtle moments too, right? Perhaps an eye roll that just made you feel small, or a comment that dismissed your feelings like they didn't even matter.
Oh, absolutely.
These instances, particularly when they happen in close relationships, can have much deeper impact than we often realize.
Definitely. And if this resonates with you and you're interested in exploring these kinds of ideas further with us, we would be really grateful if you could maybe take a moment to subscribe.
Yeah, and click that notification bell so you don't miss our future deep dives.
Okay, so let's get into it. The psychology of being disrespected. It feels like it goes beyond just simple rudeness, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, yeah. While rudeness might be more, let's say, superficial, disrespect is really a relational injury, a wound.
Relational injury. Right?
Especially when it comes from someone close, a partner, a parent, your boss, even a close friend. It really strikes at our core psychological needs.
Which are?
Fundamentally, we have this deep need to be seen as worthy and also to feel emotionally safe within our connections. Disrespect directly violates those needs.
So it's that feeling of not being seen or valued by someone whose opinion, well, matters to us in some way.
Precisely. And if we bring in something like attachment theory, Bowlby's work, we understand that our sense of security as humans is just deeply tied to our relationships. So repeated experiences of invalidation, even subtle passive aggression or manipulation like gaslighting, or just constant boundary violations, they all chip away at that fundamental sense of safety.
And what are the psychological consequences then? If that safety and worth are eroding, what might someone actually be feeling or going through?
Well, often the immediate feeling is a really deep sense of shame, that core belief kicking in, I'm not enough.
Oh, yeah.
And that can quickly spiral into pervasive self-doubt. You start questioning your own perceptions, your judgment, maybe even your sanity, thinking, maybe they're right, maybe I am the problem.
That's a tough place to be.
It really is. And over time, this can result in significant emotional dysregulation. We see it manifesting as anxiety, sometimes depression, or even dissociation, kind of checking out as a way to cope.
Right.
We also see a weakening of personal boundaries naturally, and sometimes a blurring of one's own identity as people try to just adapt or survive these interactions.
It sounds incredibly isolating, like you're constantly second-guessing your own reality.
It is. When disrespect becomes a chronic, ongoing pattern, it can severely damage your trust in your own instincts, your gut feelings, your ability to make sound decisions. You might even find yourself suppressing your own needs, your desires, just to avoid conflict or further disrespect, trying to keep the peace.
Just to get by.
Exactly. But it's so crucial to remember that self-respect isn't some kind of luxury item. It's that vital psychological foundation. It supports healthy relationships, a resilient sense of self. Without it, we are definitely on shaky ground.
Okay, so knowing the profound impact disrespect can have, let's shift our focus now to healing. What are some concrete psychology-backed ways we can actively start to rebuild that foundation? Where do we begin?
Right. Well, one of the most foundational steps, I'd say, is to validate what happened, even if no one else does.
That really hits home. I can imagine, especially when disrespect is subtle, those little digs or dismissive looks, you might start thinking, am I overreacting? Am I reading too much into this? You doubt your own experience.
Exactly that. Disrespect can be really insidious sometimes. Those eye rolls we mentioned, the dismissive sighs, maybe the silent treatment, comments that just subtly undermine your confidence.
Yeah, microaggressions.
Precisely. These can build up and lead you to almost gaslight yourself, thinking maybe I am being too sensitive, maybe it wasn't that bad.
Right.
And this is where self-validation, a concept Kristen Neff talks a lot about, becomes so vital. You don't actually need external agreement to acknowledge your own experience of hurt or injustice.
So that eye roll in the meeting.
Yeah, that eye roll after you shared an idea. That could absolutely feel disrespectful, and you have the right to acknowledge that feeling just within yourself.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we practice self-validation in those moments?
It really starts with that internal acknowledgement, saying to yourself clearly without minimizing it, something like, that behavior wasn't okay, or I didn't deserve to be spoken to like that. My feelings about this are valid.
Just stating it internally.
Yes, that simple act is crucial for restoring your sense of emotional reality. It basically signals safety to your nervous system. It reassures you that you're not imagining things, that your emotional response is legitimate.
That makes sense.
And interestingly, there's research suggesting that this kind of self-validation can actually lower cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and it strengthens self-trust. Both are essential for rebuilding self-respect.
Wow.
Yeah, and for people who've faced chronic invalidation, maybe growing up, these first attempts at validating yourself can feel really foreign, almost like you're going against years of learned self-doubt.
It takes practice then.
Definitely. Be patient, be persistent. Treat these initial validations as like small acts of rebellion against that ingrained negative self-talk.
Okay, that's powerful. Validation first. What comes next in reclaiming our self-respect?
Well, the second key strategy is to reclaim your emotional boundaries.
Ah, boundaries. Okay.
Yeah. After enduring repeated disrespect, it's very common for those personal boundary lines to get fuzzy, blurred. You might find yourself unsure of what you're even willing to tolerate anymore. It's almost like your internal no has been quieted down.
Right. It's like the other person has been slowly, maybe unknowingly, maybe knowingly, encroaching on your emotional space. And you haven't quite realized how much ground you've actually given up.
Exactly that. There's a great quote from Nedra Glover-Tawwab. She says, "Boundaries are the distance at which I can love both you and myself."
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, it's powerful. It helps us understand that boundaries aren't about building these huge walls to shut everyone out. They're more like filters. Filters that define what is acceptable to you, coming from a place of self-care and basic respect for your own well-being.
Filters, not walls.
Okay.
So how do we begin to sort of reset those boundaries after they've been weakened?
Well, rebuilding self-respect often needs a very conscious, deliberate boundary reset.
What might that look like?
It can involve several things, maybe limiting contact or even taking a pause from contact with people who consistently disrespect you.
Okay.
It also means learning to assert your needs and say no without feeling like you have to give this long justification or apology.
That's a big one for many people, saying no without over-explaining.
It is. Ultimately, it's about actively protecting your energy, protecting your sense of self-worth in situations that tend to drain you. And remember, while you can't always control how other people behave,
Right.
you absolutely maintain control over your access points. Who you let close, how much emotional energy you invest, and what behaviors you are, frankly, willing to accept in your life.
That feels incredibly empowering, just realizing you do have that control over access.
Oh.
Okay, what's the third step in this rebuilding process?
The third powerful tool is learning to regulate before you react.
The pause.
Exactly. Experiencing disrespect can be a major trigger, right? It often activates our primal fight or flight response. And in that heightened emotional state, it's so easy to just react impulsively. You might lash out, get defensive, try to over-explain yourself, hoping they'll finally understand.
I'm just shut down completely.
Or shut down, yeah, as a form of self-protection.
I think we've all been there. That immediate surge of emotion feels overwhelming, and it leads to reactions we might regret later.
Exactly. And that's why learning to pause, take a breath, and consciously regulate your nervous system before you react is just so critical.
How do we do that? Are there specific techniques?
Yes, there are. Tools from polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, give us some really valuable insights here. Basically, they show how our emotional regulation starts with calming our physical state. It highlights that deep connection between our nervous system and our emotions.
Okay, so what are some practical things we can use in the moment when we feel triggered?
There are several simple but really effective techniques. One is the 4-7-8 breath. You inhale slowly for 4 counts.
Okay.
Hold gently for 7, and then exhale slowly and fully for 8 counts.
4, 7, 8. Got it.
Grounding techniques are also great. Mindfully engaging your 5 senses, like notice 5 things you can see right now, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear.
Bringing yourself back to the present.
Exactly. 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. Even brief physical movement helps. A short walk, some stretching, it helps release that built-up adrenaline. The key thing here is that regulation isn't about suppressing feelings or being passive. It's about creating a space, that pause you mentioned, where you can respond thoughtfully, intentionally, rather than just reacting out of that emotional overwhelm.
That's a huge difference, responding versus reacting. Okay, so we've got Validating our experience, setting boundaries, regulating our responses. What's the fourth piece in rebuilding self-respect?
The fourth step is to reconnect with your core identity.
Core identity, okay.
Yeah. When you're subjected to chronic disrespect, it can really shrink your sense of self. It's almost like that constant negativity starts to define you somehow, chipping away at who you are outside of those interactions.
Right. You kind of lose touch with yourself.
Exactly. So rebuilding self-respect involves actively rediscovering, reclaiming your identity, separate from the distorting lens of someone else's disrespect.
That sounds essential, but maybe difficult. How do we even start doing that if we feel really disconnected?
It often starts with some gentle self-reflection. Asking yourself questions like, what activities used to bring me joy? What made me feel alive before I started feeling like I always had to defend myself or walk on eggshells?
Huh.
Or what parts of myself did I maybe suppress or let go of trying to get someone's approval or avoid more disrespect? And maybe the big one, who am I at my core when I'm not constantly explaining or justifying myself? And once you start exploring those, try consciously doing things again that used to bring you joy, that felt authentically you.
Like what?
Oh, it could be anything. Creative stuff like writing, painting, maybe dancing, physical things like hiking, just being in nature, or even just having meaningful conversations with supportive people. It connects to what Dr. Bessel van der Kolk talks about, reclaiming agency through action.
Reclaiming agency through action. I like that.
Yeah, it's about reminding your brain through actual experiences that you have value outside of those disrespectful interactions.
Yeah.
That you're still whole and capable.
That feels like a really powerful shift.
Okay.
And the fifth and final strategy.
The fifth and final key is to practice fierce self-compassion.
Fierce self-compassion.
Yeah.
How is that different from regular self-compassion or self-care?
It goes beyond maybe the gentler, sometimes oversimplified idea of self-care, like, taking a bubble bath, although those things can be good too.
Sure.
We're talking about a more active, assertive, protective form of self-compassion, the kind that fiercely declares internally, I deserve respect even if others haven't given it to me.
Okay.
And my inherent worth is not up for debate. It's not determined by how someone else treats me.
So it's more assertive, less passive self-kindness.
Exactly. Dr. Kristen Neff, who's done so much research on self-compassion, she actually distinguishes between tender self-compassion, which is more about soothing ourselves, being gentle, and fierce self-compassion, which is about actively protecting ourselves, setting those boundaries we talked about, advocating for our own needs.
Ah, I see the distinction.
Yeah. And after experiencing disrespect, it's often this fierce form that we need to cultivate most intentionally.
How can we cultivate that?
Using affirmations can be really helpful here. Regularly repeating phrases to yourself like, it is not selfish to prioritize my peace, or I can be both kind to myself and fiercely strong in protecting my boundaries.
I like that one.
Or even, I am no longer available for disrespect from others, or even from my own inner critic.
That's powerful too.
Yeah. Over time, these beliefs can start to feel more real, more ingrained. They start to influence how you interact, the choices you make, and ultimately how you carry yourself in the world.
That sounds like it could be truly transformative. Wow. So we've explored these 5 really powerful strategies. If you had to sum it up, what's the overarching message you'd want to leave our listeners with today?
I think the most vital understanding, really, is that reclaiming your self-respect is fundamentally an inside job.
An inside job.
Yes. You don't need to wait for an apology from the person who disrespected you. You don't need their validation or permission to feel better about yourself. You don't need anyone else to acknowledge your worth for you to start this journey.
That's freeing.
It is. Self-respect isn't something you earn by being perfect or pleasing everyone. It's your inherent right. It's like a birthright that you can actively reclaim, especially after it's been denied or diminished. The truly empowering shift happens when you move away from constantly asking, why did they treat me like that? And instead, you make this firm, unwavering declaration to yourself, I will no longer accept being treated in a way that disrespects my inherent worth.
Wow.
That internal shift, that deep commitment to honoring your own value. That's where the profound, lasting healing really begins.
That's a really powerful and actually hopeful message to end on. Thank you so much for sharing all your expertise and guiding us through this important topic today.
Oh, it was my privilege. It truly is a journey of empowerment, and it's absolutely possible for everyone.
And thank you, of course, to you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive. If you found this discussion valuable and you'd like to explore more topics like this, please do subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, that way you won't miss our future explorations.